Technology over the past decade has ramped up significantly. That not only has it impacted how we work, study, and live, but even our way of doing church has changed. During COVID, there was much debate for people who were accustomed to worshiping in a building. Do we go to church in person or do we stay online? Is one better than the other? Does God reject a person who chooses to stay online during a pandemic? John 4:24 says, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. One of the most important lessons taught by Jesus, comparable to the Sermon on the Mount, is that people worship God the right way. It seems that this was even a hot topic between the Jews and Samaritans at the time. Where is the most appropriate place to worship? You see, the Jews insisted worship was to take place in the Jerusalem temple, while the Samaritans insisted worship was meant to take place on Mount Gerizim, as Abraham and Jacob, their forefathers, had done. It shall come about when the Lord your God brings you into the land where you are entering to possess it, that you shall place the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal. Since the Samaritans only accepted the Pentateuch as the truth of God's word, they rejected the rest of the Old Testament. Thus, the Samaritans had a limited perception of worship since they had a limited knowledge of God. This remains true today. People who have a limited acceptance of the Bible have a limited knowledge of God, and so knowing what true worship is becomes a challenge. Jesus knew that there was worship happening that did not please God. So he said that he wants us to worship God in spirit. That means our human spirit is a canal for God's spirit to flow. Romans 12:1 reads, Therefore, I urge you to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. This human spirit is tested by God. He wants to know the condition of your heart and spirit when you are worshiping. Jesus was saying that temples, their exterior and interior appearance, and the material things found inside them might help inspire worship, but they are not essential for worshiping God. What matters to God is how your heart and spirit are before him when worshiping. Everything might seem or look in place, but how are you individually before God during your praise to him? Next, we are to worship in truth. In the Old Testament, one of God's attributes is truth, which meant he is dependable, faithful, and sure. In the New Testament, though, when Jesus said truth, he was talking about himself. He was saying that you need to know him, accept him as the one sent by God in flesh, human form to know God. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father if not by me. Once you know Jesus, then you can worship God the Father. Without the knowledge of the Son as the Christ, then no one can worship God in spirit and in truth. Choose Christ today. Choose his word. Now is the time to worship God in spirit and in truth.